we get on to card C5. Here it's kind of nice. It shows different ways to multiply, show multiplication. So the X, two numbers next to each other with parentheses, and then the dot also represents multiplication. And so it's a way, a chance for them to kind of see different ways of writing multiplication, because they'll be like, wait, and sometimes I'll do it and just not think. And they're like, wait, what does that dot mean? And I'm like, oh, yeah, it's not a decimal point because it's bigger and in the middle of the height of the numbers.
Yep.
All right. So now we're back to checkerboard again. So we did checkerboard yesterday, and now we're going to do it again with decimals. So the whole point of this work is not how to multiply, because they already know how to multiply, hopefully. It is to learn about where the decimal point goes whenever we multiply numbers together. And this first card has decimals times a whole number again. It says, using the hierarchy board for support to keep the place values lined up, lay out, and solve. So it is having them kind of go back to what they were doing using this board, which I don't know why they have us go to the decimal checkerboard and then come back to that. I guess just to tie it together maybe. So I lied. It's not C5. C6 is where we get into checkerboard multiplication. So I always start with these labels, and we will write it down on their paper that we have the multiplicand goes this way and the multiplier goes vertically. And I always write it on their paper sharing that M, so I will do that for you. So we have the multiplicand and the multiplier. When you are teaching multiplication, are you still calling those factors?
Yeah, just in traditional.
Yeah, okay. When I think of a factor, I think of a whole number, right?
Yeah.
More than a decimal, so I just wondered if it changed at that point. So anyway, we share that M there, and it kind of shows how the multiplicand goes this way and the multiplier goes down. So, and so we are going to use these tiles. The multiplicand, we use the white. There's more of them, right? Usually that's how I remember, because if you think about the traditional checkerboard, it's longer than it is tall. So I don't know. That's how I remember it. So our first problem is 3 46 hundredths times 3/10. And I always talk about how before now, when we've done adding and subtracting, we line up that decimal point. Remember that rule? And we underline that you must line them up. In multiplication, we don't have to line them up anymore. We line up the smallest place value when we're multiplying. So that's what we're going to do here. So we have 3 and 46 hundredths times 0 and 3/10. And we start with the unit in the middle. So this tile has this square has 2 different tiles. I just line it up so that the multiplicand is at the top left, and multiplier is at the bottom right, just so there's room for the beads inside. And I use my marker to kind of keep track of where I'm at so that I don't get confused. So we're going to start by multiplying the smallest place value by the smallest place value. When we multiply 3/10 times 6/100, 3 times 6 is 18. And we multiply tenths times hundredths, the place value is thousandths. So I'm going to write my 8, carry my 1. Just like before, the one I write is vertical, the one I carry is horizontal. That just helps me to know I haven't done this square yet. So I'll move my marker over. And now I have 3/10 times 4/10. 3 times 4 is 12. So write the 2, carry the 1. And tenths times tenths is hundredths. So this is when I'm really getting into that, place value. 3/10 times 3 units is 9. And tenths times units is tenths. And then we're done. So I'm going to flip this over so I know that I have finished the tenths. We're going to move up to the next place value. 0 units times 6/100 is 0, right? So these are all 0 because we're multiplying by 0. So let's go ahead and we're going to make our exchanges. We have 2 and 1 is 3. 9 and 1 is 10, so 0, carry the 1. And here again, sometimes I've seen, sometimes people have little pieces of paper in here with zeros written on them so that you can just place a 0. That's another thing with these cards. Sometimes they'll have you multiplying by 5, and then that smallest place value is 0, and then they aren't writing it, and then we can't discover where to put the decimal point without materials whenever the problem's written that way. So just being mindful about the problems that you make so that it's demonstrating what you want to demonstrate. All right, so then we're going to go ahead and slide these all down. And I always start writing down here the smallest place value. We have an 8, 3, 0, 1. Now where does the place value go? Between the units and the tenths place, right? So I'm going to place the decimal point right here between the units and the tenths. So 3 and 46/100 times 3/10 is 1 and 38 thousandths. So the whole point of this work is for you to figure out where the decimal point goes. So every time you're doing a problem, I want you to be thinking about, how did I know to put the decimal point there? I wonder if there's a way I can figure out how to do it without the materials. So just encouraging them to be curious as they're going. Also, what did you notice? We were multiplying this number by a decimal that was less than 1. And was the answer bigger or smaller?
Smaller.
It was smaller. So, interesting. We'll just kind of pay attention to that as we're going. So the next problem, again, has the smallest place value is tenths times tenths. The next one is hundredths times tenths.